Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 109 of Fracking Nightmare, coming to you from the UK Column Studios in the southwest of England on the evening of Thursday, 13th of July, 2017. Now, I've got a very interesting show tonight, a little bit different on the basis that some number of very significant interviews with people who are working to try to bring about the end of this abomination here in the UK. Now, I hightailed it down to the southwest from North Yorkshire, where I had been for the last couple of weeks or so. And last weekend, we had a community open weekend at the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp, raising funds for sustaining the camp on this beautiful location just outside Kirby Misperton in North Yorkshire. We had a number of visitors through the weekend, some very, very interesting people, a lot of people coming down to the camp for the first time, some out of curiosity, some stating that they'd been meaning to come down for a while, but just hadn't had the opportunity. Well, perhaps the two extremes of the weekend were the Bishop of Selby, who came along, escorted by Graham Carey, a retired bishop who happens to be a resident in Kirby Misperton, and his wife, Jackie. And the Bishop of Selby was very interested in taking a view at the camp and meeting with the protection community on the basis that he is going to be leading a delegation that's been invited to meet with John Dewar, the chief executive or chairman of Third Energy, in a month or so. At the other end of the spectrum was a visit from Dr. Adolpho Odious Gitt, the chairman of Odious Energy Corporation. And we're going to be playing an interview, a full interview with Dr. Gitt in the last segment of the show tonight. But here's a trailer to get a taste of what Dr. Gitt has to offer with his unique, well, perhaps not so unique, worldview.
People absorbed the things I said. People listened because I dress well, and I spend a long time looking after my personal appearance, and I'm an academic. I say to them, look, I'm an academic, and they immediately believe everything I say, which is wonderful. It's terrifically convenient for me.
So I spend a lot of time speaking with people here, and they tell me they've done their research, and they seem to be rather concerned about the impact that fracking might have on the local water supply.
Well, I think it's not really a problem, because there's lots of water in the world and you can buy it. You can buy it in bottles, for God's sake. Water, some of the best water actually comes from abroad, from the Alps and places like that. What's so special about this local water, for God's sake? It's so localist. I actually only drink Perrier and Evian sometimes, but yeah.
But this is an agricultural area that relies on farming, and are you suggesting that perhaps they should mass import Perrier or Evian?
I think we should really mass import everything, Ian. Why farm in Britain? I mean, for God's sake. I think at the moment we do import a lot of food. Why don't we import all of it? For God's sake, I look around, I see an abundance of energy under the ground. Other people see wildlife, they see agriculture. They're not looking as deeply as me. I'm looking under the ground and I see, well, I dream about money, but I see gas down there, trapped in the shale. And it makes me feel wonderful. It makes me feel excited.
Well, we'll be hearing quite a lot more from Dr. Adolpho Odious Gitt later on in the programme. But meanwhile, obviously there's a lot of awareness of things that are going on the front line, but maybe not quite so much awareness of what is going on behind the scenes. And I want to draw your attention to a particular crowdfunder, and we're going to have an interview with the person who is behind this crowdfunder, and a discussion with Ben Dean as to his legal challenge. Now, this is a screenshot.
And this isn't just, oh, let's try this.
Of
this
his
is absolutely going to be
crowdfunder
happening,
page,
and you're going to be introduced.
And you can see the web address at the bottom of that page there. And as we speak, Ben is almost at half of the total he requires to fund this particular crowdfunder. Now, Ben is actually challenging the whole legitimacy of the licenses for unconventional gas exploitation being extended in the earlier rounds without any further review, without going back to tender. Now, this is an issue that has a very, very deep points of law. And the judge, the case was heard, no ruling has been made yet, but the case was heard on June the 22nd. And in the early part of the hearing, it seemed that the judge was almost a little bored and wondering why it was that he'd drawn the short straw to hear this particular review. But David Wolf, QC, was certainly on form, and he was able to whet the judge's appetite. And once the judge realized the intricacies of this particular case, he warmed to it. And the British government, who are effectively trying to protect their decision, I think began to realize that there were some points of law here that they may have assumed that nobody would pick up, but they didn't reckon on the tenacity of Ben Dean. Now, Ben is a resident of Cheshire, and if we look at this map here, you can see an example. Regular viewers will be aware that the whole of the north of England is effectively being targeted. And Ben has focused on a single license, and this is PEDAL, that's Petroleum Exploration and Development License number 189, which sits just to the WP on Universal Credit, east of the city of Chester. Now, the implications are very, very significant for this case, because if Ben's legal challenge actually is accepted by the judge, well, obviously it will be appealed, but if it's accepted, it has implication for at least another 13 licenses. So here's an interview I did with Ben last Sunday afternoon at the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp. And listen to the detail of the explanation here, because Ben is absolutely on point on this challenge. And I have to say that as far as I'm aware, there isn't a single other individual or NGO that has latched onto this. And indeed, as Ben will explain, initially Friends of the Earth really questioned whether or not this actually had any legs. But they suddenly realized that actually there is some very, very significant points of law in this case, and they have certainly helped Ben bring about this legal challenge, helped with expertise rather than finance, which is why Ben is needing to initiate the crowdfunder. But take a listen to this.
Started in January 2016 when I was in discussions with the Oil and Gas Authority about deed of variation, which extended the initial term of my PEDAL 189, which is Chester, Upton, Mickle, Trafford, for 2 years from the 1st of July 2014. They forwarded to me the deed of variation, and it was a very unusual document. The original firm work commitment for PEDAL 189 was a 750 metre drill and some seismic. This deed of variation brought in 12 other licenses and increased the firm work commitment to 10 800 metre drills and 3 3,000 metre drills, and these drills could be anywhere in any of these 13 pedals, which meant that pedal 189 could be without a drill.
And a pedal is?
A Petroleum Exploration Development Licence. And law says that they are split into 3 terms: the initial term for exploration, the second term for appraisal, which at the end of the appraisal period, if it's going into production, they have a field development programme, and then the production term. Statute has the initial term at 6 years, appraisal 5 years, and production 20 years, so a pedal licence is for 31 years. So it just set alarm bells ringing for me that something wasn't right with this document, and I started having conversations with people, principally Friends of the Earth. Their view was that a pedal was a common law contract and therefore its terms could be varied by agreement between the parties. I disagreed because there was too much statute involved, and my view was that a pedal was a statutory licence, and a statutory licence could therefore only be amended according to the terms of the licence, which in the case of pedals they have what they call model clauses inserted, and those model clauses allow the variations to a licence. Well, the 2008 pedals, which is pedal 189 and about 50 others subsisting, adopted 2004 model clauses, and those model clauses in 2004 specifically say the initial term is fixed for 6 years, but the second term and the production periods could be varied. So I couldn't get a legal opinion, and it was only in September, getting on for 3 months after a further extension to pedal 189, which was granted on the 1st of July, although the granting date was the 28th of June, which extended the pedal for another 2 years from the 1st of July 2016. Eventually I got a phone call from Friends of the Earth on the 23rd of September to say, Ben, you may be right, but we haven't got long. So we met on the 25th of September in Manchester, put together a claim and served the claim on the 29th of September directly on the Secretary of State's offices with no pre-action protocol, which I think the Secretary of State was rather surprised. And we also served IGAS as an interested party because they're the licence holder. We then had the defences in from the government and IGAS saying pedals are common law contracts, you're not, your claim's nonsense. And on November the 12th or thereabouts, Justice Dove basically ruled against me without my QC, that's David Wolf's QC, having commented on the defendants and the interested parties' defence, and awarded costs against me of £3,338. We then did a bit of head scratching, and we thought, well, there's so much that they could have gone against us with at that time, such as delay, promptness, prejudice, out of time, that we would appeal. And we appealed and had an oral permissive hearing in front of Mrs. Justice Lang on the 15th of December. Mrs. Justice Lang was the judge for Rydale, of course.
And for Balcombe. And for
Balcombe, yes, absolutely. I was initially a bit concerned, but I was advised that she's a pretty fair judge. She gets into the case, which is what we wanted. Anyway, we had a 3-hour hearing, and she ruled on 2 things. First of all, that we could go to a substantive hearing because there were arguable points on both sides, and she also ruled that I would be granted Aarhus protection because it was an environmental claim. This did not go down well with the government at all, who appealed that ruling, which was dismissed by Mrs. Lang. There then was a huddle with the many.
Now, just to for the benefit of those who don't understand, the Aarhus ruling is a European ruling that actually protects the applicant in environmental cases.
Yes, it limits an individual's cost to £5,000 and a group's cost to £10,000. When I made my application, it was open to anybody, but they are now means testing applications. They don't like Aarhus. Without Aarhus, I would have struggled to continue, because we know that the government's cost had increased to £27,000 prior to the hearing. So prior to the hearing, with obviously additional costs for the hearing, and we've also had some additional submissions post the substantive hearing. So Secretary of State's cost now £40,000. If I don't get a favourable result, I don't have to find £40,000, I have to find £5,000, which is a manageable sum for an individual.
Now, but I believe we've got a crowdfunding campaign up and running, and you're already, I think, close on about halfway through that money now.
Yes, a week ago I set up a GoFundMe account to raise the £5,000 should I not get a favourable result, and also £922, which are court fees that I've got to pay anyway. As we're sitting here on Sunday afternoon, we're at just over £2,500. I provided a bit of an update yesterday as to the fact that 15 other pedal licences were similarly awarded a 2-year initial term grant on the 1st of July 2016. And should I get a favourable result, then not only will pedal 189, and there are 2 decisions that could be made there. One is a quashing decision, in other words, the deed of variation is not lawful, and therefore the pedal ended on the 30th of June 2016. And the same would apply to the other 15 pedals, but it wouldn't happen automatically. There would have to be an application for a judicial review based on my case, that those pedals should also automatically.
Which would actually set the precedent.
Yes.
But of course there's some way to go, because obviously the hearing has taken place. You are now waiting on the judge's ruling.
Yeah, a reserve judgment, as you get in these cases. But the other favourable result would be, which is what the government's asked for, would be a declaration by the judge that the extension is unlawful. And this would be a very interesting position. I'd rather the licence was quashed, because then in where I live there won't be any fracking for years, because to reissue the licence they'll have to go through all the environmental protection regulations
and put it out to tender again.
But the second one, a declaration only, would require the government to bring some legislation into the House of Commons amending where it's gone wrong and why the extensions are unlawful. And I don't think that Theresa May at the moment would like to be bringing anti-fracking legislation to the Commons.
So in a nutshell, what you have effectively raised is the legality of the extension of the existing licences of the previous rounds.
Yes, it's a very narrow case, and we deliberately left it very narrow. There are other issues with licences which I won't go into here, where the handling is certainly not being followed procedure. But we kept it narrow to the initial term on the 2008 pedal 189, simply because if we're right, then the pedal has to be quashed or new law brought in, and we just wanted to keep it as a narrow argument. There is another interesting angle. The reason why the confidence was there to state that they are statutory licences and not common law contracts was that Jill Knight had also launched an attempted judicial review challenge for pedal 234 Broadford Bridge, Billinghurst, which is also a 2008 pedal, with the environmental Law Foundation because they discovered the 1995 EU directive, which is governed by the UK 1995 regulations, and basically this exposed the tendering process which licenses had to go through in 2008, and that process was to give, like any procurement by council or government under EU law, a level, transparent process. And in the directive and in the regulations, it keeps going to the initial term will be 1 year, the firm work commitment must be met, and if it's not met, the drill, it's drill or drop the drill. Isn't drilled, the licence has to fall. The government's argument there is that it doesn't matter. The industry, or parts of the industry, are aware that we grant deeds of variation, but there's nowhere in the legislation that permits deeds of variation. So part of the argument is if you vary the terms of the firm work commitment and the terms of the initial term after the 6 years, then that's not fair on the people that originally tendered, who might not have known that if they didn't complete their firm work commitment, they could get an extension to allow them to complete their firm work commitment. And a major part of the tendering process is your firm work commitment. We've got the tender documents, and the more drills you commit to, the more seismic you commit to, the more points you score, and the more likely you were to get awarded the pedal. So in that respect, it's all come together, and it looks, in our view, that there's a statutory scheme that governs pedals, and they cannot be considered common law contracts. And it goes further: if they're common law contracts, then that common law contract is between the Queen and the oil company. And if something therefore goes wrong, and the oil company goes bust, the landowner puts the land in a limited company, as has happened at PNR, where the Wensleys have put it into Jaw Limited. That limited company will go bust, and the Queen will be left with the liability. And that cannot be something that Parliament intended to happen. So it's a very interesting case. There's a lot of law involved. It's a big call, though, for the judge to quash a pedal, and we just have to wait and see over the next few weeks which way the decision will go. If it's favourable and after any appeals, etc., then what I raise in my GoFund campaign will be made available for the anti-fracking world, from paying fines to if there's another challenge out there that requires some funds. So, you know, the money will go to other anti-fracking causes if we get a favourable result.
And I mean, one of the things that you have absolutely stressed is there will be absolute transparency on how the funds are used.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's Ben Dean, a remarkable gentleman, and a remarkable legal challenge. And I have to say that Ben was absolutely instrumental in helping us with the legal challenge earlier in the year against the protest pens, which Quadrilla were trying to slip in as part of their injunction on the well site in early March. In fact, Ben acted as my Mackenzie friend in court. Now, just to reiterate, this is the license area that Ben is challenging. This is Pedal 189, just to the east of Chester there. And this is his crowdfunding page. And as you can see here, earlier today, he was at just under £3,000. His total is £5,922. That is made up of the £5,000 that he has liability, potentially has liability for under the Aarhus agreement, and £922 in court costs. Now, you know, Ben and Sharon were prepared to put this money up themselves, but the challenge has really broken new legal ground And I certainly think it's absolutely appropriate that those people who feel that this has to be challenged by every means possible should perhaps consider helping Ben raise this funds and minimise his own personal liability. And as he said, if he is successful, then the money will be divided amongst other ongoing legal challenges or helping those who are putting themselves on the front line through expenses in getting to court or other court-related expenses. So there's the web address. We'll put it up one more time. But if you search GoFundMe, Fracking Judicial Review, Ben Dean, you'll find it. And Ben will certainly be most grateful for that. Okay, we will take a short break and then we'll be back and we'll be taking a look at what's been occurring at Preston New Road and another new frontline at Marriott's drilling in Chesterfield.
If at this point in time you can stand in front of a drill rig and stop it from getting on. The easiest drill rig to stop's the first one. The hardest one will be the 10,000. It'll be more than that though in the UK because you're doing shale over there predominantly. Shale needs a lot of wells, needs a lot of destruction, poisons a lot of water.
If this gets the tiniest foothold, you know, you're done. So it's now or it's never. Don't think that you've got that long because it's now or never. So you do it now, you stand up now and you find something within yourself that you didn't think was there. You know, that's the important thing. You will be confronted by police. They wear their Kevlar suits and it's a big intimidation thing.
Hey, you've got nobody in front of you. Keep walking. You're delaying this lady. Keep going. Don't push back on her. Keep moving. Now. If you've got to keep going. Keep moving.
It's up to the people of the UK to get their cameras in the face of the Kevlar security, the Kevlar police who are paid by the corporations. And we have to say no. That's all it is. But it's more than just saying no at a meeting. It's intent. It's the intent of no. It's the knowing that you mean no. That's when you will be unbelievably powerful. You come out in numbers. If they see your grandmother and the mother and the child come out and say we are not going to accept this, then they are finished. But that's what it takes. Don't sit back and think that anybody's looking out for you. It's you.
And the wonderful news is that more and more people are heeding David Monk's sound advice. You know, it's down to each and every one of us. And at Preston New Road, where Quadrilla are still trying to complete the pad construction and basically drill the conductor casing or conductor well, and the local community are seriously stepping up to the plate. This was a 13-man lock-on, and every one of these people is from the local community, and including 3 councillors. Now, as much as the media will try and demonise the anti-fracking community and stereotype the protectors as the crusties or the swampies, anybody taking a trip to Preston New Road and seeing the level of community opposition there would see that nothing could be further from the truth. And yesterday's lock-on, there have been so many lock-ons, so many wonderful people truck surfing or using their creativity to build lock-on devices. But yesterday, there was a family, 3 generations went to lock-on there. And here they are in their lock-on devices, arms inside the boxes here. But, you know, it wasn't easy for them. And, you know, I'm sure that there was a lot of soul searching that went on before they committed to taking such a level of action. And then, of course, they had to put the time and the effort into the construction of the lock-on devices. And one of the family members It's a lovely quote, and credit to the Drill or Drop website and to Ruth Hayhurst. This is an outstanding chronological diary of what is occurring in the unconventional gas agenda. And Gillian Kelly is quoted on Drill or Drop as saying, "I've never done anything like this before, but I can't sit idly and watch the place I was born and raised be poisoned and polluted by fracking. I feel now I've got to make a stand. This will affect my whole family and their futures, my sons, my grandchildren, and that's why we're taking action together as a family today." Now, there was some very, very serious commitment and conviction to this lock-on, especially as Lancashire Police earlier in the week announced that they would have a 24-hour presence at the gate in an attempt to try and prevent locking on and to try and facilitate quadrilla. They're not facilitating protest in any way, shape or form. They are facilitating quadrilla and the unconventional gas agenda. But all the people that were down at Preston New Road, when they realised what was occurring, they stepped in to help the family achieve their goal of shutting down the operation for a few hours. So take a look at this video here.
This is what we call
Fantastic, even better. Beautiful people. Beautiful people. Lock on at PNR, guys. Lock on at PNR, support needed. Sorry, excuse me. It's somebody's lost a bag.
A few years ago, Theresa May said that we police and govern with permission of the people. But the reality is that the government nor the police have permission to facilitate the unconventional gas agenda. It is an extremely unpopular agenda, and certainly I think one that the police would really like to see disappear, because they are very much caught between a rock and a hard place. We know that there are many police officers who are not only disturbed at the fact that they are being used as corporate enforcers, but are disturbed at the tactics that are being used and they are being asked to conduct against peaceful protesters. This is very much a numbers game. And right now, there's a lot of people at Preston New Road. So if you feel that you wish to participate in letting both the government and the police and quadrilla know that this is something that you do not approve of, and you would endorse Gillian Kelly's statement of you need to do this to protect the ecology, to protect the water, for your children and your grandchildren, then please go to Preston New Road. You don't have to get involved. You can be a spectator and watch what is occurring there. But numbers are very, very important. It's my opinion that we can shut this industry down. We can get the government to backtrack on its commitment to this agenda, which certainly does not have the support of any other political party other than the DUP. And of course, they'll support anything that Theresa May wants them to support because she's paid them £1 billion to do so. Now, you know, that might seem like bribery, but apparently if you do it in government, there's another name for it. Bribery. Well, it's not just Preston New Road. 2 weeks ago, a new front was opened at Marriott's drilling in Chesterfield. And whilst there had been some speculation about when the rig would emerge from Chesterfield, 2 weeks ago, in fact, Ben and Sharon Dean and a couple of people, or 3 people from the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp were absolutely instrumental in initiating a presence, a very visible presence, at Marriott's in Chesterfield. And over the last 2 weeks, they've had enormous support from the local community. They've set up a small camp at the end of the road, at the edge of the Danes Hill Industrial Estate there. And you are very welcome, if you're in the East Midlands, to go and visit and support the protectors at Marriott's drilling. And this is a tremendous opportunity because the East Midlands is going to be under threat, is already under threat, from the likes of Odious, the seismic testing going on. And in fact, the protectors are blockading the seismic vehicles as they go in and out of Marriott's. Now, I'm going to take the opportunity here to play part of an interview that I did with Lou Hammond, Ben and Sharon on Sunday, talking specifically about what's occurring at Marriott's. And this is very, very much in support of PNR. So basically, we need people who are west of the Pennines to go to PNR and people who are east of the Pennines to go to Marriott. This has to be a team, a community team effort. So here's Lou. Okay, well, I'm here at Kirby Misperton Protection Camp in the now somewhat expanded studio. It's actually a community weekend, so you can hear the maybe hear the music going in the background. We've taken a break from the festivities here, and I'm here, and it's my great pleasure to be talking with Ben and Sharon Dean. And alongside them, we have Kirby Misperton's very own Lou Hammond. And we'll be talking to Lou a little bit later on about her recent experiences at Chesterfield. But Ben, Chesterfield, the home of Marriott Drilling. Now, you went over there, what would it be, about 10 days ago now?
Yep, we went over a week last Thursday. Originally we were coming to Kirby Misperton, but you weren't quite ready for us and the weather forecast was rain. So we had a spare day. We had a chat with Joe Boyd and with Sharon, and we decided that we'd use that day to go over to Chesterfield to have a look at what was happening at Marriott's rather than go up to Preston New Road. So that was a week last Thursday. It was meant to be a fairly gentle day, but it didn't turn out like that at all. We arrived about 1 o'clock. Were met by some very, very hostile local people.
Employees of the...
No, other industrial estate workers. We were quickly spotted. There's security all over the place at Marriott's in terms of cameras, and very quickly we had a visit from the police who wanted to know what we were doing there. We just advised them that we were here to have a look at the yard, nothing more than that. But we more or less then had a police presence for the rest of the day. When we arrived, we quickly saw that there was a low loader being loaded by a crane with some hopper equipment and a generator, very obviously fracking equipment for the rig. we kept a monitor on that for the day, and when they attempted to release the lorry from Marriott, we quickly decided that we would stop that and have a peaceful protest, which we did at the gates. So we held it up at the gates for about 45 minutes.
So this is just yourself, Sharon and Joe Boyd?
And Joe Boyd, yeah. Yeah. So we did a couple of live streams, Sharon did, and we walked the lorry up to the road, which the police said we could do, and then Joe was asked to move, and he said to the police, "No, I'm staying here." And they said, "Well, you said you'd walk it up to the road." And Joe said, "Well, I have done, but I'm staying here." So it got quite tetchy with the police, and also more industrial estate workers were a bit hostile to us, because obviously they were concerned that we were going to get in the way of their business. So in the end we released the lorry, and our phone started ringing, and it was people saying, "Where are you? What's this about? Can we help?" And obviously some people decided to come down from Kirby Misperton, some people came over from Cheshire, and they formed the camp that evening.
And Sharon, now you were there with Ben.
Yeah.
And so what was your experience of the day?
Well, it was quite a shock for me, because I was just going for fish and chips actually in Bakewell, but yeah, we went for a look round, and we watched as Ben says, the lorry being loaded at the back, and Marriott's management came out at the back photographing us, and then actually one of Marriott's management came up in his car to see what we were doing. His 4x4 questioned us and then went away, and we had the police and everything. So as the lorry was moving round, we decided to walk back round to the front of Marriott's, and we saw the yellow cabin, which had been attached to the lorry, going to come up and leave. So I started live streaming before this, my first live stream. I hadn't done it before. So Joe and I went up to the gate then, and it started opening, and the lorry tried to come out, and that's when Joe and I it was just spontaneous, off the cuff. We just decided that, you know, we would have our peaceful protest there and slow walk, which I hadn't done before. But the lorry came straight at us, and I didn't think he was going to stop, and I got quite scared, I must admit. And then Joe actually recognised the lorry driver, and he'd been at Barton Moss, delivering at Barton Moss, and the lorry driver got very aggressive and jumped out of his cab. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Don't you be following me home, don't you be threatening my children," and this sort of thing. And we hadn't said anything like that, nor would we ever be anything like that. I mean, we're just here to try and stop fracking. We're not interested in anybody's personal life. So that started, and then he said to me, "I'm not even going there, I'm going to Inverness." So I said, "Well, show me your paperwork then." And at that point all the management came out from Marriott's, and they said, "Oh, it's going to be a water well, we're doing water wells." So I said, "Well, show me the paperwork." And they were all saying it's going to Inverness, but nobody would show me the paperwork. And then of course another policeman came, and I said, "Well, he's not showing us the paperwork, so we're not moving." And then of course that's when we started the slow walk then, because the police said, "Well, if you're just going to walk him out, there you go." So, and they said, "Off you go." So off we went on our slow walk.
Now this was it was a vehicle, it was a blender unit, if I recall.
Yeah.
And it did actually manifest at Preston New Road, so...
Yes, it did. So yes, Marriott's were caught out lying, as they have done since several times. Obviously they lied on the live stream, and we've got the lorry arriving at P&R, and then since then they've continued on with their fantasies of not delivering to P&R anymore, which, as we know, is not true.
So now you and Ben and Joe were down there on Thursday, and in the late afternoon you made a few phone calls, one of which was to Lou.
It was.
So Lou, tell us what happened on that Thursday afternoon, because you were actually having a bit of a break, as it were, at Kirby Misperton Protection Camp at the time.
trying to have a break.
After your escapades at PNR?
Yep. So I come back to the camp to relax for a few days, and then got a phone call. Then I got a phone call from Sharon, very upset about what was going on at Marriott, and so obviously I said that right. I spoke to Eddie. We borrowed a car, and this was all in about an hour. Borrowed a car, and that's it. I'm back on the motorway again to Marriott, and we got there Thursday evening, and we took the bit of grass at the top of the road from Marriott, where we've got clear view of the rig.
When you say took the bit of grass, established a camp there?
We established the camp Thursday night. 3 or 4 of us, I think, were there in the end, and we established the camp. We got the Section 6s up, and yeah, and so we established the camp at the top of the road, with a clear view to the rig that we could see, and the gate that we could see. Then it started straight away, absolutely, first thing in the morning. I mean, unlucky for the seismic testers in that area. What we didn't realise was that's where they were storing everything at the night time. So a lot of our slow walking is with the seismic trucks.
So this was the Odious seismic trucks. Yeah, and so this is the surveys that are being conducted around the Hart Hill area,
yeah,
in South Yorkshire and on the borders of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire.
Yeah, that's it. So without realising, we've managed to be able to protest those as well, all at the same time. But we're seeing lorries coming out and going to PNR. So yeah, good action.
Now the following day, you put the call out, the call went out that night, and I think you had a tremendous response from the locals.
Fantastic. Once again, another fantastic. We put the call out. I made the Facebook page the next day, and started shouting out, and absolutely amazing work from the locals. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure, to help guide them, if you like, because they've never done anything like this, you know, and it can be very, very scary. And I think this is the first time I've actually been involved with guiding people who have never done anything like this, and the response has just been amazing. They want to learn, they want to get involved, and I've had it said to me a few times while I've been there, thank you, you've got us motivated. And we feel now, because a lot of them can't get to PNR, they feel now they're contributing to PNR and helping. And also by doing that, they're managing to monitor the seismic testing all at the same time. So yeah, a good action.
Well, as you heard there, a lot of fantastic support from the local community. So this is a tremendous opportunity for people in Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Lincolnshire, South Yorkshire, to go along and provide some support to those on the front line at Marriott's drilling on the outskirts of Chesterfield. And today there was an outstanding lock-on. It was a tripod lock-on, and the picture here is of some people who were locked on the ground being cut out there. So there's obviously some also actions in Sussex right now at Broadford Bridge. And I have to say that, you know, my home county of Surrey and Sussex are a little bit of an embarrassment, really, because obviously there are a few people doing their level best to obstruct the operations there, but a handful of people are not going to stop this. And I have to say, you know, that's really why I feel that this is going to be stopped in the north of England, because there really is community spirit in the north of England. You know, Borkham was unique 4 years ago, and we are seeing the Borkham spirit at PNR and at Chesterfield, and I know we will see that at Kirby Misperton in North Yorkshire. But for whatever reason, commuter belt, dormitory area, whatever, we're just not getting the traction of the support from the community in the south of England. And sadly, You know, people in the south, you're leaving it to a very, very small number of people to try to raise awareness. And, you know, ultimately, you're all going to pay the price. You're all going to suffer, because those of you who have unconventional gas wells in your vicinity, then, you know, your greatest asset, your property, is going to be extremely difficult to sell. And maybe it's going to take something like that, or it's going to take an incident for people in the south of England to truly wake up to the magnitude of the threat. Well, at Kirby Misperton, we're about 8 weeks away, from, I guess, give or take, from the action starting, and this is why we're there. This is the well site, just on the outskirts to the south of Kirby Misperton village. On the south side there, this is a conventional gas well, and this is producing currently for the Knapton Power Station. This is KM8. This is the pad that, and the well here, the existing well, that Third Energy have permission to frack. They have submitted their plans to the Environment Agency, and this is freely available for anybody to access on the Third Energy well site. And this is their 5-stage frack. And interestingly, in the new political definition of a hydraulic fracture, as specified by the Infrastructure Act, only the lowest stage here is actually a fracture, because that's the only stage that will be using more than 1,000 cubic meters of fluid. The other 4 stages under the Infrastructure Act are euphemistically known as a tickle. But nonetheless, a frack, as I've said in Voices from the Gas Field, a frack is a frack is a frack. Now, at the weekend, we had the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp Community Weekend. It was an absolutely beautiful weekend. The weather was very kind to us. We had a horrendous downpour on the Thursday evening with about 3 inches of rain in 3 hours, which presented us with some interesting challenges in terms of getting vehicles on the field. But over the course of the weekend, we had some live entertainment, and it was just absolutely the perfect opportunity to welcome a lot of new people who plucked up the courage to come down and meet the protection community. I have to say that we've had some fairly favourable coverage in the media, and you know, although unfortunately there perhaps were too many people for us to spend time with everybody who came through, I do hope that people will come back, you know, when we're a little less busy, and come talk to us. And there's the lovely Jane Gibb from Harrogate getting her haircut there. Here's the stage that we have now at Kirby Misperton, and all of the bands provided their services for free to support the protection community. And the headliners, the Fuzz Junkies from Scarborough, a truly outstanding set. And if you want to take a look at some of the music that was played, then scroll down my personal Facebook page, and you'll see some of the live streaming that I did on that afternoon. Now, as I also intimated, we had the privilege of a visit from Dr. Adolpho Odious Gitt, the chairman of the Odious Energy Corporation. And he took the opportunity to share his unique worldview, or maybe it's not so unique, because I think actually it's probably quite representative of his counterparts in the unconventional gas industry. So any similarity between Dr. Adolpho Odious Gitt and any other chairman of the unconventional gas industry companies is, of course, entirely intentional. So anyway, here's the full interview. Take a look at this, and at the end of the interview, I'll just touch base with you again before we close out the show. But this, I hope, is going to be the first of numerous appearances of Dr. Gitt on Fracking Nightmare. Well, it's my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Adolpho Gitt, who is the chairman of Odious Corporation. Now, Dr. Gitt, I gather that you have spent the weekend at the Malton show.
Yeah, we had an absolutely fantastic time, actually. Wonderful people. The people of Rydale are just absolutely fabulous. The great thing about people in this area is they're terrifically polite. terrifically polite, and we've actually found it very easy. We found it very easy to convince them that we care.
But my understanding is that there's a significant degree of opposition to your intention to frack a number of wells in this area.
You know what, Ian? I think a lot of that is about the name, about the word fracking. It's a terrifically ugly word, and I agree. We should change. We shouldn't use the word fracking. We should use the word liberation. We should talk about liberating the gas.
Now, I was told by some people who had visited from Australia that in Australia, where they were mining the gas, but the gas was actually seeping out into the atmosphere, causing problems with the livestock and even the health of the residents of that area. Do you not have any concern about the residents of the Ryde area?
I think actually a lot of that methane is actually coming from the animals and from the people. A lot of from protesters are emitting methane. We all emit methane. Do you emit methane?
I guess occasionally.
I think we all emit methane, and methane is entirely natural, along with radioactivity, all these scary words that people use, but it's natural gas.
But there's a natural element of methane in the atmosphere, but if that percentage increased significantly, as has been the case in certain parts of the globe, Australia, US, Canada, and the impact that it's had on the farming communities, and here, of course, it also is a massive tourist attraction. And I'm not aware of any area in the world that doubles as a fracked gas field and a tourist destination.
Well, Ian, I hope that, I think that we can write off the north of England, really, because I think the north of England, well, it's not a place where people from the south like to go, is it? Because it's an awful, I think if we look at historically, the north of England is desolate, it is grim. I mean, today is an exception, of course, it's very nice here, but normally it is grim, isn't it, Ian? And there's not a lot here. There's not a lot to see.
But I think the residents of this area would perhaps disagree with that. Did you not discuss this with the people at the Malton show?
The people at the Malton show are a different, wonderful people, polite people. What can I say? The people at the Malton show are there to celebrate the end of agriculture, a kind of nostalgic view, really, of agriculture and this area. And I'm looking forward, and I'm going to make them look forward too, to a new age, an age of industrialized, yes, a boost to the economy. That's what I kept saying to them. There'll be a tremendous boost to the economy, and they believed me.
Another version of that is that this is a sacrifice zone, though.
Well, in a sense it will be. I mean, in a sense you'll be the first. We're experimenting with you, I suppose, in a sense, one could say that. And we'll continue, if we're successful here, we'll continue to do it elsewhere. So, but sacrificial is a very strong word. Yes, we're experimenting, and because this isn't an important area, this is a North Yorkshire, Rydale, people haven't heard of it, so...
Well, they'll hear about it in the future, I guess, if you have your vision.
Well, they certainly will, because it'll be a huge success story.
Now, Dr. Gitt, I also gather that you have been instrumental in lobbying your MPs and getting those MPs to lobby the government ministers on removing subsidies from renewables, which is why it seems that although there are a few windmills around here and a few solar farms, apparently there's no real incentive to expand the renewables area right now. Is that something you take credit for?
Ian, the awful thing about windmills is one can't harness the wind to make plastic in the same way one can harness shale gas. It's not a tool for manufacturing, and therefore not of interest to me. The wind, the sun, it's also, the problem is it's free, really, isn't it? We don't have to pay for that. It's just available to any old person that wants it. And we can sell them gas, you see.
Now, I gather you actually took a trip down to the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp after your time at the Moulton Show. What did you have to say to those people who are there to try and prevent the unconventional gas industry from taking a foothold in North Yorkshire?
I think the problem is that people there, they haven't done their research properly. Is this one of the children that you've been talking about? Oh, sorry, I don't like children. Excuse me! Please help me remove this child, please! Is the mother of this child anywhere? Can you remove him, please? He's touching me!
It's me, terribly sorry about that. Don't go near him, he's a bad man.
How dare you? It's nothing personal against... when I see children, it depresses me. Because I don't think people should really have children. I mean, what's the point? I had a child once and it just took money off me and it didn't turn out how I wanted it. Anyway.
The Kirby Misperton Protection Camp. What did you have to say to the people who are there to try and prevent this industry from becoming established in North Yorkshire?
I think the important message for the people at Kirby Misperton is that debate is important, but let's not be extreme. There's a rise in extremism, people locking themselves to things, people lying down in front of lorries, people preventing people from getting on with their work. And that sort of thing is terrorism, really, isn't it? It's terrorism. And I think as long as their protest doesn't achieve anything, it's fine. Let them do what they want. And let's have a debate, perhaps about visual impact, perhaps about noise. But let's not get to the real heart of the issue, Ian. Let's not talk about the hard stuff, because that's for the men, isn't it? It's for me to keep to myself, really. Yes.
Now, where do we go from here? Because I mean, we're sitting here at one of your new well sites here.
Yes.
And there have been lock-ons here.
There have been.
And the police have removed them.
We've got an absolutely fabulous relationship with the police. Absolutely fabulous. They just do what we want. I mean, we just one call in, we don't even have to ring them, and they're here. They are such a wonderful bunch of guys and girls, actually, as well. And we said to them, just some of you talk to them nicely, others, you know, we use a kind of good cop, bad cop system. It works wonderfully. We've bought police actually from all around the country, and they do a wonderful job.
Now, you said you bought the police. Is that literal or metaphoric?
You know, we work so closely with government, Ian. We're so hand in hand, I don't really see a division. And the state, the police, the government, and Odious, of course. A lot of us actually work in government as well, anyway, so there is no division. We're one unit.
So what you're actually describing here, though, is effectively a corporatist police state.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that everything I've dreamed of all my life, and I'm starting to see it come to fruition? And it just makes my heart sing when I see that cooperation. It's cooperation, Ian. It's not corporate, it's corporate. Cooperation between government and industry.
But isn't that another definition of fascism?
Efficiency, the word's efficient, is terrifically efficient, because protesters, oh, you'll know, have you met them?
I think I've come across one or two, yes.
I mean, they're very good-meaning people, but they're wrong. They're wrong. They don't believe in the kind of vision that I have, and the School of Economics that I'm part of, and you know.
But your tagline on your corporate logo here for Odious Corporation is community consultation, ensuring you believe that we care. And actually, what I'm sort of sensing is that you don't really care.
Well, if I'm giving that impression, then that's not the impression I wanted to give. I want to give an impression of somebody who does care. I do care, not necessarily about the same things as you, but I do care. I care about my friends, like you care about your friends. Yeah. And
no doubt most of your friends are working at a fairly high level in the corporatocracy.
If some of us are doing a little bit better than others, it's because we deserve to do better than others, Ian. It's a meritocracy, it's a level playing field. We all start off on the same level playing field, and some of us, through virtue, through our own hard work, we have got to these positions and we deserve them.
So those who elect not to work and effectively challenge your intent of fracking right across North Yorkshire, do you think they should actually be euthanized?
Ian, would you put this off the record? Turn off the camera. Because actually, just turn off the camera for a second, because I don't mind sharing with you personally, privately, that yes, perhaps who's to blame? Is it their parents? I mean, I think I said yes, actually. Yes.
Okay. Well, I think I have to say thank you very much, Dr. Adolpho Gitt. Now, I did actually notice that when you arrived here this afternoon, you arrived with a mop.
Yes.
Why was that?
We'd had a little incident. I don't like, some people call it an accident, an incident, a tiny incident. We had a little problem with the pipeline. I don't think it was catastrophic, because you can buy water, can't you? You can always buy new water. But yes, we curtained it off. We put some barriers up so people couldn't see what was happening, and we mopped it up. We did our best, and there was a bit of seepage. And
has it affected anybody's water supply?
I think there's, well, it depends where you get your water in. It depends where you get your water, and some people have been complaining about the frogs that have died. But frogs are horrible, aren't they? And fish. I don't like fish. Do you? So yes, some people don't like it. I don't really see it as a problem. I think in general we're winning the war with nature, and we're going to win. And I think it's an attitude difference. We're just win-win.
So the spill didn't affect the water supply at Evian.
It's a bit much to call it a spill.
Well, I gather it was quite a few 100,000 litres.
I think some people have said Olympic-sized swimming pool. They've said that, and I don't know about that. Whether it was an Olympic size or half Olympic size, I think is debatable. It's very hard to measure these things. A lot of it seeped into the ground, and we don't know where it's gone. And the bit we did contain wasn't that much, really. You know, it wasn't a lot, and won't have made much difference.
Hey, well, Dr. Gitt, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. I'm not sure I've ever actually met somebody who's quite so bigoted, but an absolute pleasure, and thank you for sharing your time with me.
Will this go out to a lot of people?
It might go out to one or two, yes.
Fabulous, because I'm a big fan of myself, and the more people see me, the more people can share me, and I think I'm fabulous. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Horrible bloody man, isn't he? Jesus Christ. Is it over? We can go now. Thank you.
Well, the unique, or maybe not so unique, worldview of Dr. Adolpho Odious Gitt. And I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of him, or maybe people who just sound like him. Anyway, thanks very much for joining me this evening. And don't forget, if you're over the western side of the Pennines, please go and visit Preston New Road. and the Quadzilla well site there. If you're on the eastern side of the Pennines, then please go down to Marriott Drilling on the outskirts of Chesterfield. And I extend the invitation to anybody who wishes to visit the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp. We anticipate that Third Energy will probably start getting the infrastructure on the well site at Kirby Misperton in early September. Meanwhile, take a look at what's going on in your area. And if you don't get involved, then just ask yourself, who is going to stop this abomination? Thanks very much and good night.